Now we start with Ukraine and Russia as the rest of the world ponders on the United States' proposal for peace in Ukraine, which may include concessions of land in the Donbas to Russia. Ukrainian soldiers have warned against trusting Russia and have said that Putin was the first guarantor of Ukraine's safety and in turn himself attacked Ukraine. Let's in fact listen to what a soldier on the front line has shared.
Що ми тоді тут воюємо, якщо вони хочуть, щоб ми то все то їм давали. Ми тут захищаємо наші кордони, щоб потім просто взяти та віддати. Ну, смисл тоді оцього всього, всіх жертв. Люди військові зараз гинуть просто капець як масово, плюс обстрілюють мирні міста. Ну, я думаю, що вірити їм не можна, того що, ну як вам сказати, вони були одним із перших гарантів нашого захисту, а по факту вийшло як? Що вони на нас напали. Вони тільки красиво говорять, а толку ніякого. Їм взагалі вірити не можна.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us again. Good to see you. Mark, now looking at this, while we know that U.S. delegation in Ukraine discusses peace talks, the war still goes on. How is this escalating situation going to affect peace talks, and will the peace talks still be effective? Also, who do you think should be the guarantor for Ukraine?
Be with you again. We've just seen comments from the Ukraine, the deputy ambassador to the UN, where it's made very clear that the Ukrainians will not, they do not want to give up land. We remember that in February 2022, the Russians invaded a sovereign country. They're also concerned about the fact they are not going to be dictated to in regard to who they have their military allegiances with, and they are also not going to be dictated to how much being told that they have to reduce their army by. So that has been made very clear, and as you have said, the G20, the individuals down there, are reacting to this peace deal. Now, if you step out and reflect back on how Donald Trump, the Trump administration, may put negotiations forward, they would turn around and say, well, we have an extreme, we start from an extreme point of view way over here, say to the right, and then slowly come into the middle, into the center. The big issue is over land. There has been a sovereignty. The sovereign country has been invaded by another country and taken 20% of the land. And the Ukrainian authorities, understandably, and I'm sorry I couldn't see what that soldier was saying, but I can only guess, are turning around and saying, we have lost lives. We've lost thousands of our own soldiers. Look at the destruction of our own country, and we're turning around and going, no, we want Russia. Understandably, we want Russia out of our country. So assuming you are then going to have that stalemate. Also, the other thing is that, just to note on this, that's very interesting from what the Ukrainian deputy ambassador to the Ukraine has said, is this. Is to turn, when the Russians have and others have turned around and gone, well, hold on a minute, European nations, also under the Biden regime, they are then giving money, they are then giving armaments to then shore up and reinforce Ukraine against Russia. The Russians aren't pleased about that, and Ukraine say this is happening because we need to bring you to the table to genuinely discuss an end to this war, not a ceasefire, but to actually end this war. How you then do that within, as you said, the war continues, and within a framework where the Ukrainians understandably are saying no, and also when Putin says, as that soldier alluded to, turns around and says, well, hold on, Putin then says, well, he will defend us. Well, what has happened after the invasion from February 2022? And finally, remembering in 1994 under the Clinton administration, and then going on into further Minsk agreements, which is another discussion. But in 1994, which is Ukraine, hand over your nuclear weapons and we will defend you. As always, in all our conversations, Asuma, there's never enough time, but we have to go back historically and paint a huge arc to all of the events that have gone on before that lead up to this present time. Asuma.
Right, and sorry, Matt. Sorry. Yeah, can you tell us what do we know so far about what is included in the peace proposal made by U.S. so far?
Well, I think I've touched on the three major concerns for Ukraine, right? That then supersedes everything else. If they're turning around and saying, "Well, look, we're going to have to negotiate land for peace," also you are going to have to reduce the army, and also then it looks like who is going to be the protectorate of Ukraine. All of those issues are then. These are the comments that are being made in how Ukraine is then looking at this particular deal. And then, of course, if they're being asked, you've got to reduce your army, the military capability there, then that is not going to be acceptable to Ukraine at all, Azuma, because they were attacked. You can't argue with that whatsoever.
Yes,
Azuma.
100%. Thank you very much, Mark, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to our next news, Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that Canada will resume trade